I thank you and the rest of the directors that allowed me to come try to inform on this subject. It's not just an environmental issue, but an issue that has grave ramifications for human health, respiratory effects, and so forth. And geoengineering is a term many people are not familiar with. However, most are familiar with the term weather modification. This is not a new subject, but the point, my background, by the way, louder? Okay, I'm sorry. I have a background in solar energy. I work for Bechtel Power Corporation. I worked in some of the first solar plants in the continental U.S. My home was on the cover of the world's largest renewable energy magazine. The bearing this has on the subject is it's part of what started me studying the issue of toxic metals that have shown up not just in this county, but across the globe in absolutely off-the-scale amounts in the last 5 years. I'm sure most are familiar with the effects of aluminum. They're well documented. They're extensive. And what my sole purpose here tonight is to try to inspire some investigation by everyone here on this issue that absolutely affects us all. And I was skeptical of this at first, very skeptical that such programs could be the source of such a massive increase in heavy metals. I was skeptical to the point where I began doing my own lab tests at the state certified lab. From an initial reading of 7 parts per billion of aluminum 4 years ago, that quantity has in some cases escalated 50,000% in a single rain event in the last 4 years. Snow samples off the side of Mount Shasta taken by, there's a U.S. Forest Service retired biologist in that region, have gone as high as 61,000 parts per billion. It's literally toxic snow. And many would ask, if this is the case, if this could possibly be, agencies would certainly report. We would certainly know this. That's what we would think. But in fact, having been in Barbara Boxer's office, whom I have no regard for, nor do I for Mr. Gore, who has no honor. And these people who, and there's a long list, I don't want to categorize only in one arena, there's a long list of responsible parties that have ignored this issue. Having been in high-level EPA meeting in Sacramento and been told in no uncertain terms that virtually all these contaminants are not tested for, that there's a specific list of contaminants that these agencies test for, and the heavy metals that are involved apparently with these programs are not on there. And I'm not, when I speak of these programs, I'm not speculating either. I attended the International Conference on Geoengineering at considerable expense. I had a press pass provided by Reading Radio, thankfully, and I was in the room to listen to the world's most recognized geoscientists. This is just a term for, again, geoengineering is a term for climate modification on a global scale. And I was in the room while they quite cavalierly discussed the dumping of 20 million tons of ultrafine aluminum particulates into the atmosphere. The final question of the symposium was, after 3.5 hours of presentation describing virtually everything we see above us here on given days, the materials described are exactly what's showing up in our tests. And again, I want to state things in a way that's non-speculative. I can state for certain that the metals have increased here, according to the state's lab, monumentally in 4 years. Those metals are exactly what's listed on numerous geoengineering patents, and those patents describe exactly what we see above us here on given days. So, again, I'm trying to state things in a way that's non-speculative. I don't want to speculate. I only want to tell you what dots there are and you can connect them. But the question for this world's most recognized geoengineer was, have any studies been done whatsoever on the health ramifications for dumping 20 million tons of ultrafine aluminum particulates into the stratosphere? Have any studies been done regarding environmental toxicity, water toxicity? After dodging the question twice, stating more or less that there's so much junk in the air anyway, a little more won't hurt, the final answer was no. No testing has been done, and you can see him say this from his own mouth on the net. This is recorded on the public record. I mean, the videos are on the net, and Andrew could, actually there's a site that I'll list later. But his final statement was, could terrible things happen tomorrow from this? Yes, we don't know. They have done no studies because there are no laws requiring them to do any such studies. The premise given for these programs, that's a question that most people ask immediately. The premise given for these programs is to mitigate global warming. Now, whatever's happening with the climate, one way or another, to attempt to control the Earth's systems on such a scale can only be described as unbridled insanity. But their pretext for these programs is that we are already involved in a giant experiment because of human activity on the globe. So what the hell? Let's just try another experiment. And the statements of the geoengineers, and this can also be found, I'm paraphrasing, is that the public should not be involved in any dialogue on these issues because they're simply not educated enough to know what should be done with the climate. And I simply cannot accept such a pretext. And I can tell you that there's been, in this county alone, about 4 plus lab tests. There's been some air testing done in one of the school districts here outside the kids' classrooms. It was, very, very high in aluminum and barium. They've issued a letter on that. The average over the last 4 years is about 800 parts per billion, which is, it's literally hundreds of times over what should be in a precipitation sample. I've had a hydrogeologist tell me that there should not be aluminum in our rain unless we live next to an Alcoa factory. And so, again, the effects of this seem to be showing up on a very large scale. And one arena in which that scale might be demonstrated is soil pHs, of which we have a very, very extensive record in this county. USDA has done extremely accurate soil pH testing. And this has been confirmed by biologists, U.S. Forest Service biologists in Mount Shasta City and other fish and game biologists, but the soil pHs in Siskiyou and Shasta counties in areas tested appear to, across the board, have changed to a degree of 12 times toward alkaline. Aluminum oxide raises pH, and again, that's from a level of 5.5, 5.6 to 6.8. If any are familiar with soil pHs, that is a gargantuan change, and the amount of material it would take to make such a change can scarcely be comprehended. But again, whatever the source, and if any are skeptical, as certainly I was, of such programs being conducted with no regulation, no oversight, no laws governing such. And again, it's hard to imagine that could be the case, but in fact there are no such laws.